He's not finished the mimer, which is the beer on Kelkal Kavod Chuppah, starting on page Daf Mem Ches Amid Aleph. I would just going to do the third a perek of it, as it says. And he says now the Torah. So till now we spoke about the idea that there's a level of Kavod, Kved Hashem, lower level of Kavod, which is Malchus, and then there's a higher level, which is Chachma, and the Chuppah over Malchus and Zah is a level of Bina, Tiferes of Bina, and the level of, as it is over Chachma, is the level of the Ratzon of Arachampin. So now he says in Perek Gimel, the Torah that's revealed, that is a level of desire that's revealed, as we spoke about before. It says in Zohar that the 613 mitzvahs, they come from the 613 pathways, and that is the crown. That his mother crowned him, because this desire is called the crown and the keser, which comes from good precious stones, but they're actually inanimate, and yet they have within them a beauty and a glory that shines from it, from this hidden light. And the same way the mitzvahs, they become from physical things like tzitzis, from wool, and tefillin made from parchment or leather, and that's the idea of the daimim, and like a stone, but yet it's a beautiful stone, and it brings about beauty. And that's like for the example of this lower level of ratzon, which is only the external level. Sorry, this is the level of ratzon that we said before, which is the external level of moichas dima, which is hidden in the inner desire. The same way Torah that's revealed to us, we have no real understanding of it enough to explain all the mitzvahs. So he says, and as he said in the previous mimer, as he says that we find that we exclude the clothing of night from the pasuk or Isa Moisai with regard to tzitzis, but we actually include the garment of a blind person, and he says it's not a good enough reason. In other words, because its source is only from the external levels that are revealed to us now as a desire without understanding. But when Mashiach will come, then it says it'll be given to us a new Torah. It says in the Medrash Pasha Shmini Perek Gimel, and the meaning there is, it says in Rashi on the verse Yeshakena Meshikas Piu, that then will be revealed to us the reasoning of Torah, the inner levels. That means that the level of the hidden intellect now will come then in a revealed way of understanding and pleasure of this desire. As we say, As Sanik al Hashem, that the pleasure that will be then will be higher than the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, that now is only hidden from us. But then when it will get revealed this reasoning and this pleasure of this hidden intellect, then there'll be a pleasure over Hashem, higher than Hashem. And that's also what it says, that the source idea of the two ideas of betrothal and marriage. That by the time of getting the Torah, that was only the time of the betrothal, by the betrothal, the woman just gets a round ring that she puts on her, etc. And that's what it says, that to become holy with his mitzvahs. But when Mashiach will come, then it'll be a level of marriage, as it says there in the Medrash, as it compared there to Ba'alayach Esayach, that says the woman gets acquired through intimacy, and the sperm that's drawn, so to speak, this seed that's drawn from the intellect of the father, it comes from the inner levels. And that when Mashiach will come, then there'll be the revelation of the inner level of the hidden intellect, and this pleasure will come in a revealed way, revealed to us, and therefore be considered like marriage mamish through the level of intimacy by Elayach Esayach. And the reason for this is that this revelation will be only when Mashiach will come, because it's known that the source of all the mitzvahs is only to refine from the physical world that we are, the good of the klipa of noiga, the good from the level of noiga. That's through the positive commandments and negative commandments to separate the bad from the good, because in every single thing, even in a Jewish soul, there's good and bad, which through the descent and falling of the 288 sparks that got mixed with the evil, we have to, through positive and negative commandments, separate them and to refine them. And after we refine them, then they become much higher and much greater, because their source comes from the level of Tayu, which are the lights that preceded the world of Tikkun of which we are, which are much higher than the level of Tikkun which comes after the refinement. And therefore, this is the reason why food gives life to a person, because the source of the food, even though as it is down here, it's mixed with bad, but in its source, it comes from the world of Tayu and the lights of Tayu. And therefore, when a person eats it and he refines the good from the bad, and he chases away the bad and all the dirt to the outside, then after this refinement that you brought out the good from the food, then the opposite. It gives life to man. Why? And it gives him actual power and life to his soul, to his soul. Why? Because after the refinement and their ascension to their source, they're much higher. In other words, from the word of Tayu that comes even before the world of Tikkun. As we know, Tayu is the name of Yudke Vavke, as it's spelled out with certain letters to bring out the numerical value of Sag that refers to Bina. And Tikkun is the level of Maz, a different way of numerical value, which refers to the level as it is in Zah. And so ultimately, the level of Tayu is higher than Tikkun. And therefore, so right now, before it was refined, this food, and in other words, the sparks that have fallen are still, in other words, before they were totally refined. So then you don't have revealed within them the pleasure and the original pleasure. Why? Because they're mixed with good and bad. But after the refinement, that they'll go return to their level as they were before, then there'll be the complete and end of the action that was an original thought, which was first, and then there'll be nothing concealing from this bad. And then automatically will be revealed this great pleasure of this light and this shine of above. And this is specifically through the refinement of the lower things that are right now lower in our world. And that's the idea which we say, Eishes Chayil Ateres Baal, that a woman of valor is the crown of her husband. That, in other words, from her, there shines a great light and good reasoning and understanding that is hidden and concealed. And that is a level of this concealed intellect, which we said is higher than the level of, even higher than the level of the higher level of kavod. Which we said kavod is the 32 pathways of Chachmilah. But Moiches Tima, it does not come down into pathways, which right now is just like a good stone. It's inanimate, but then this light will be revealed, and Torah will be even higher, and even higher than Tikkun, because then even the Tikkun, there'll also be, but then Torah will be an even higher light after its refinement. And so it comes out, what he's trying to say here is that the revelation of the inner level of the crown, which is Moiches Tima, this hidden intellect, and this Atik, this will be specifically when we have the complete refinement of the world and Tayu, and look at, as I'll say, the reason at the end of the Maimon. And that is why we find the last two brachas of the marriage. First we say Mesameach Chasan V'Kal, that he should rejoice the Chasan and the Kala. And the last one he says, rejoice the Chasan with the Kala. Because right now, the Kala receives from the Chasan. The bride receives from the groom. And that's what it says, rejoice the Chasan and the Kala. In other words, the Kala is getting it from the Chasan. But Mashiach will come, then it'll be equal. Both of them equally, they'll have one crown for both. As it was before the moon was made smaller. And that's the idea, the Mesameach Chasan Imakal, the Chasan will be, that through the Kala, he'll rejoice the Chasan, as we said, that the woman of valor is the crown of her husband, and that's why it also says there, that Yishama will be heard, the sound of the Chasan and the sound of the Kala. Because when Mashiach comes, there'll be a sound to the Kala, meaning, what is a sound? That's a revelation, and drawing down, like we say, a physical sound, that it gets revealed from the breath of the person into the pipe, and it gets revealed as sound. So Mashiach will come, and then will be the woman of valor, will be a crown for her husband. Then the Kala will have a voice, that means it'll be revealed. And that's what it says, similar to what it says at that day, water of life will come out from Yerushalayim, and half of them will go to the eastern sea. In other words, that the Malchus will become a crown, and will give to her husband, and be a mashpia. In other words, even higher than the level of Tikkun, but only because then the Tikkun will not become nullified. Therefore, there'll be a sound of the Chasan and a sound of the Kala. Both of them will have voices. Both of them will be revealed. Both of them will be being drawn down. In other words, both great luminaries after the refinement. But yet, this level of the hidden intellect is the source of all the refinements that we do. And as we say, that when it says that the Chachmas Berir, that everything is refined through wisdom, the source of that is in this hidden intellect, which is hidden, which there is the main refinement. And after they'll be refined, then there'll be the revelation of this hidden intellect. In other words, this eternal pleasure, which is the completeness of our whole purpose of life and of the world, and etc. And then there'll be the revelation of this inner reasoning of Torah, as we say, Yeshikenim and Shikas Piyu, that will get the kisses from the kisses of his mouth. which is the revelation, the great revelation of the pleasure of Hashem in this world. And therefore, right now, we daven Shemona Esrei quietly, because then, right now, the Kala, which is referred and similar to the level of Shemona Esrei, she doesn't have a voice right now, doesn't have a sound, because now the level of voice, of malchus, of speech, is nullified to thought, and to the emotions. As we know, a woman is secondary to her husband. That's the way it is today. I guess it's changing already in our world, much more so than it was in the past. But when the Alter Rebbe said it, for sure it was that way. But Mashiach will come, and we're getting closer to Mashiach's coming. So it's changing in our physical world too. But Mashiach will come in the world to come. After, there'll be the refinement, and it'll get revealed this hidden intellect. Then there'll be the good reasoning and understanding and godliness. Then the Kala, the bride, will actually have a great voice, a great sound, and it won't ever stop. And that's why we're going to say Shemona Esrei then in a loud voice. And the Malchus will become the main level. That the woman of valor will be the crown of her husband. As it's known that in 10 spheres of Or Chayza, means in the 10 spheres as they reflect back up to up to heaven, in a reflective 10 spheres, then the Malchus becomes the crown, and the level of Yisoid, which before was the one giving to Malchus, that becomes the level of Chachma, and a level under the crown. And look what it says in the Maimer, V'chaltam Achos, Parsh Vayigash, and with that we finish the Maimer of Bir Hadvarim. Okay, we'll now do the Maimer, Ton Rabban Ketzah Meraktin, that's on Daf Memches Amud Beis. So, continuation of Daf Memches. This Maimer begins with a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Ton Rabban, our rabbis learned, Ketzah Meraktin Lifnei Akala, how do we dance before the Kala? Beishamai says, you say a Kala the way she is. And then Beis Hillel says, you say Kala Novach Suda, you say a beautiful and kind Kala. And as we'll see later, as the Mishnah says, that Beishamai says, it's a Mizvah Sheker Tirchak, you're not allowed to say a lie. You say this even for a Chigeres or a Summa, for one who is crippled or blind. And Beis Hillel says yes. And so the Beis Shammai says, this is not the truth. And Beis Hillel says, if somebody buys something in the market, would you go and praise the thing that he acquired or belittle it in the person who acquired its eyes? And the same thing here. You don't say something negative, you say something positive. Okay, so we'll see some of that Mishnah will get explained later, but right now we'll go with the Green Maimer. So he says, Kala, a bride, is a level of Kosa Nafshi, which is the expiring of the soul, which has a level of Kosa Nefesh, that one expires and totally goes out to God, that there isn't every spark of the Jewish soul, that it wants to become fused and totally cleaving to Hashem Yisbarech. And this love is within the soul at every time, every moment, as it says, that I sing for you in your glory. And it says, that he calls constantly and doesn't stop. And even the lowest of Jews, in other words, Amma Aretz, and one who transgresses sins, they also have this level of love, but only, rather, they just don't feel it in their soul in a revealed way. And see what it says in the Ma'amar Shchar, the black fire, which is this hidden love, but rather it is a way that it's superficial. It surrounds the person. It is around him, rather within him, from above, as it says. Even though he doesn't see it himself, his soul, as it is above, his mazel does feel it. In other words, it has its impact, but it's not the way that you see it down here. So he says, but how do we bring out this love, which is called the Kala, from its concealed state within ourselves into a revealed state that we could actually experience it, that it should shine in our soul in a way of revelation. So on this, the Chachamim asked, how do we dance in front of the Kala? And Beis Shammai says, as she is, because being that Beis Shammai comes, their sources from these great supernal severities, and therefore they're called Shammai, from the word Sham, which means to measure and to take a measurement or a calculation, which it says with Sham Derech, they always calculate their ways, or the one who calculates their ways. In other words, he figures out which way he'll go, how he'll go, etc. That means in the translation, according to Chassidus, that it would mean that in accordance with the way that they leave from evil, so too will be what they draw down from above. Afterwards, from the level of Kala, which is this Klesa Nefesh from above. So the meaning here is, I mean, there'll be two ways to look at this, as we'll just. I think that's the way to look at it. Either there's the actual before davening sormeira, to leave from evil and to hold yourself back from doing bad things, which that could allow you to have a love when you daven, or it's the sormeira in your contemplation. That means to look at the things you've done wrong and try to leave it and as he said, v'sham derech, to figure out all your ways and to see where you have faults and to fix it, etc. And through that calculation, and you'll come to this level of klais nefesh that you want God. And that is what we say, kala k'moshehi. In other words, in accordance with your ascent from below, in other words, the way that you break your evil and leave evil, whether it's a lot or a little, that's the way you'll draw down the revelation of klais nefesh within your soul. And as he says in the Maimer Shema via Vehefer and the Maimer Shcher Nivanava, with regard to the mitzvah, negative commandments and the rules of our sages, which are in a way of iskaftia, which through that we arouse a spirit from above, and through that you will elevate even your animal soul towards Hashem, and you have a kol sanafshi. Okay. He says, but Beis Hillel, who his source is from the level of kindness, he argues on Beis Shammai that it shouldn't be that the way what you draw down in accordance with how much you've elevated yourself, but actually the other way around. First, you should draw down from above, down to here, and then automatically will fall all the external levels that are not for God, and that the actual good that you will do will come before the evil, that knows the getting rid of evil, because a little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. And so here the same thing. We're going to look, on the one hand, you could do positive mitzvahs before your davening, before your time when you get this love, and that brings about the love. Or as he said, or as we could say, the appreciation of God in all areas of life, and God in all, as we'll see in a moment, it has to do with the Pesukah de Zimra, etc., that the appreciation of Hashem in all areas of life, that will bring about that you will want to leave all your evil automatically, and that light itself will, so to speak, bring about a love that you'll have to Hashem. And therefore it's called the Hillel from the term of Bahalu Neroi, to shine his candle, Ali Reishi, on his head. And also Hillel from the term of praises and thanksgiving, which that is through the thanksgiving that we say in the contemplation of the greatness of Hashem. In davening, automatically the evil will fall apart. And look what it says in the Maimer, about the idea of tzmiach, tzedakah, utihila. Okay, and this is what it says, that take me, pull me after you, and I will, or basically, mashcheni, schlepp me, I'll run after you, which is, the running is from below to above. But that's first, to having that God schleps us from above to below. In other words, from above he schleps us. Through that, we'll automatically run after you. Now, we're talking about here about a kala. We're talking about here, how do we do it? So we're talking about our own contemplation, but in a way that it's from above to below. We're thinking about God's greatness. And look what it says in the Maimer Kiyakim Mikem, the Maschil Nasas Bnei Gershon, etc. And that's what it says. And so in the Maimer Adam Kiyakim Mikem, he explains actually that when a person has an arousal from below, you're supposed to do something to hold on to it from when you have an arousal from above, and automatically you're in excitement to serve Hashem, you should immediately grab onto it by doing things from below to bring yourself closer. So here would be the same thing. You have this first revelation from above, and then you have the what you do from below. And I think in the Maimer Nasa Yisrael Bnei Gershon, there it speaks about how the elevating of the head happens through Dafka, the union of Gershon, the union of Gershon, and the union of, and the idea of through the negativity or through the severity, you come to a level of picking up the head. So these would be the two ideas of Beisham Beisel. And that's what we say, a kala nova chasuda, beautiful and kind bride. What does kind here mean? Chasuda, it's nalosha nifal, that it's being accomplished. In other words, for those who are medactic, the word chassid and chasida means is a title. They are already a chassid. But the word chasuda with a malupum, which is means that it's happening. That means through that she becomes a chasida through it. That means through the drawing down of the supernal kindness from above to below, there'll be a revelation of godliness, and automatically the evil will fall apart. And then there'll be a revelation of the cleaving to God within the soul, that you should be a kala that's beautiful, and the Jew upon which the Eibishter, not upon, but with which the Eibishter and Hashem, with which Hashem praises and boasts. And even one who could have been a cripple, or one who could have been a blind one, which before God it's all equal. And even if you give him tzedakah matitan loy, and that's where it says yidla ka'ayil pesach, that this idea of jumping from one space to another, and look in the Ma'avar drastically, and that's where it says chesed elyon bal yimoit, that the supernal kindness will never falter. That through the revelation of the kindness from above to below, then automatically the evil will be pushed away. It will be like it never existed, and it'll be in a way that the love actually becomes set and planted firmly, like a peg that's planted in the ground, that it never moves. So too will be this love to Hashem, even when you go from this level, this idea that first you have this kindness and you have this revelation of godliness that comes from above, that you arouse through praising God and seeing the greatness of God. Through that, it arouses a love that never will move from you whatsoever. And look at the second Likkutei, that in order to have a carving, so the cleaning of the soul, like a vessel, it needs to be carved on the inside and from the outside. That's through the praises of Sukkot de Zimra, which are called the praises of Hashem, and through the fulfillment of mitzvahs as well. Which are the two things we're mentioning here: positive commandments and the actual praise. And you could say one is this cleaning and carving from the inside, one's from the outside. Both are in the state of a positive action or a positive way of thinking, and through that you come to Kala Novach, so that you get the revelation of God upon you, and you become beautiful no matter where you were and what state you were before, and that love will stay within you forever. On the other hand, according to the words of Beis Shammai, you have to have first the leaving of evil completely, and that a person can never do perfectly. And therefore it says the way you are. In other words, just as you are. But if you're a chigaris or a summa, you're somebody who's crippled or somebody who's blind, no, they can't accomplish this. And the words of Beis Shammai, which he says you should stay, you can't say a lie. And Beis Hillel answering that with the whole story that we mentioned before, if a person bought something in the street, would you praise it or not? So this is similar to the idea what it says in the Medrash about the idea of chesed and truth. That Hashem asked chesed, shall I create the world? And chesed said, create the world, because it's full of kindness, even though they're not fully truthful. And Emes said, don't create. And Hashem says, like Emes, move away. In other words, that as the Rabbi said, that from not doing it properly, you'll come to do it lishma in the most proper way. One step will bring to the next. But it's worth it from the perspective of kindness to go and do it this way. But that which it says in the beginning, how do we dance? What is the dancing about? So what is this? So in other words, to have this combination between the chassan and the kala, that they're two opposites that are actually polarizing one to the other, because the chassan is the drawing down from above to below as water that flows from a high place to a low place, because he's like the level of the mashpia, the giver, and the supplier, that he supplies from above to below, and the kala is the level of the receiver from below to above. As we explained before, the kala is the level of kosa nafshi, that she's expiring out to God, and she's going, so to speak, from below to above. And it's similar to the idea of a fire, that it goes up in a flame also from below to above. And these are like two opposites, like water and fire. So in order to have the unity of the chassan and the kala, that is similar to what the Rabbi said on the verse, that he makes peace above, between the minister of water and the minister of fire, that Hashem, when he reveals himself upon them, they come together, become like one. And they work together. And we see in the Bara, right at the time of the plagues, that the two were acted in one tandem, in one hailstone. So that is through being drawing down from a higher level from the realm of than both of them. Which through that, they both become nullified in their existence, and they're able to become and equalize and become one. And the same thing also here through the chuppah, as it says on every glory there's a chuppah, that this is the level of drawing down the supernal surrounding lights, which are from the level of Saiviv Kolamim, which through that, the chassan and the kala combine and they become as one. And that's what we say, how do we dance in front of the kala? In other words, what does it mean? Lifnei kala means higher than the kala, to the inner level, the greatness, to greater than the kala. Which that is a level of Saiv Kolamim, that we draw down these surrounding lights. So how are we able to accomplish this? So he says, Keitza Meraktin, how do we dance? That it happens through the dancing, which dancing happening with the feet. Because the level of this lower light that fills the world, Malakalamin. In other words, this lower level, that's where the dancing is. And we draw down through it from higher than the level. In other words, from the highest level, which is the external level of the makif of Saiv Kolamim, from the external levels of Saiv Kolamim, as it says in the Ma'avar Kodaidi, in Medalag Makapet, in the Ma'avar Henifis, because the inner levels of the Pnimi, the inner level is the Pnimi of the Makifim, we cannot grasp, we cannot hold. We learned this in a previous Maimer, that what comes from the white from above cannot be grasped down here below, because it's beyond our senses to be able to experience it. And therefore, to be able to reach that level, we could only get the external part of the external of the higher level becomes the inner and the inspiration for the lower level. So now we need to get the inspiration from the chitzonius of the makif. How do we do that? Through the dancing that happens in the malakulamin. And therefore we give a honor to the chas and the kalim. We pick them up and we raise them. In other words, that we try to raise them to the level of Seiv Kalam, which is the level of the makif. And look what it says in the Maimer, and that's what it says, Sadik Hashem b'chodracham, that Hashem is a tzaddik in all of his ways, which this is the combination of making peace in the heavenly abodes, in the world, in the lower abodes. And as you can look also in the meaning of rikud, of dancing, in the idea that the mountains danced like deer, like antelopes, in the Maimer Hayom Rav Yonis, and also in the Maimer Psula B'Machal, which is the idea of dancing, that through the dancing with our feet, we're able to elevate and reveal the chuppah, the actual canopy, and that's also through the picking up of the chasen and kal, that we raise them towards this makif that's higher than both, and through this aura of the makif that's higher than both of them, two of them could actually combine together and become like one. And in simple meaning, it maybe means that a chas and a kalas very often comes from two different directions in life, in two different ways that they serve Hashem, two different ways that etc. But their service of Hashem, that which is higher than both of them, the dedication to Hashem, that could bring them together in a true unity of husband and wife. And that's what it says, Ish ve'isha, that each one has a fire, Eish ve'esh, but through having Yud-Kei, the Yud and the Hey that's in the center of their names, they combine and they become like one, v'chulu, and that is this v'hayu l'basar echad, and that's specifically in this level of avodah, that how you reach, and the combination with another is through having a shared understanding or shared inspiration from the Eibishter, which brings you together and makes you as one.